They stole the wrong Apache woman. By sunrise, a legendary gunslinger was already at the fence. The trouble began the night the raiders slipped into the outskirts of the Apache camp, moving with the confidence of men who believed they could take whatever and whoever they wished without consequence. And though they managed to seize a young woman named Asha, they had no idea they were laying hands on someone whose disappearance would rattle the land before dawn. Asha did not scream, nor did she beg, even when they tied her wrists and pushed her onto a stolen horse, because she carried within her a strength her ancestors whispered into her bones. Since childhood, a strength made of fire, spirit, and lineage. The raiders celebrated their capture, thinking she was simply another bargaining piece they could trade or sell. But each of them felt a creeping discomfort they refused to voice, as if the darkness around them had begun listening. That fear had a name, though none of them said it aloud. Cole Harrow, the gunslinger whose reputation stretched across counties, like a shadow nobody wanted to step into. Cole had once walked the same trail as killers and bounty hunters, but he had left that life behind after an oath he made to Asha's father years ago. A promise forged in a clash of honor Asha's father had spared Cole's life in an ambush long ago, and Cole had vowed that as long as he breathed, no harm would ever touch the chief's bloodline. So when Asha was taken, the news reached Cole before sunrise, carried by a boy who rode through the night, with lungs burning and eyes wide with fear. Cole didn't ask questions. He didn't need them. He simply holstered the iron he hadn't used in years, placed his hat over his eyes like a man returning to a familiar battlefield, and rode out before the horizon even began to glow. Meanwhile, Asha was brought to the raiders' temporary camp, tied to a fence post as they argued about what to do with her. Some wanted ransom, others wanted leverage, but Asha watched them with a gaze too calm for a prisoner, a look that unsettled even the hardest among them. She warned them in a quiet voice that they had made a mistake they could not undo. But the men only laughed, calling her stories superstition, trying to ignore the uneasy chill spreading through the camp. She did not mention Cole by name. She didn't have to. The bond between them had been formed over years of respect, quiet conversations, and shared danger. And she knew that if he ever discovered she was in danger, he would come with the fury of a man who had lost too much in life to lose anything more. As the raiders argued, one of them, a man called Riker, kept glancing at the horizon, feeling a pressure in his chest he hadn't felt since he deserted the army, a sense that a storm was approaching on horseback. He barked orders to his crew, trying to disguise his nervousness. But Asha could see the cracks forming in his bravado. She told him that fear had already chosen him, that the moment he laid hands on her, his fate was sealed. But again he silenced her with empty threats. As the hours passed, the tension only grew. Asha's ropes dug deeper into her skin, but she never flinched, not even when the raiders pretended they might execute her to force her tribe's cooperation. She simply lifted her chin and said that fear belonged to those who believed in power, without understanding consequence. When the first light of dawn crept across the plains, the camp grew still. Birds were silent. Wind stopped moving. Even the horses remained tense and restless. It was then that the faint thud of hooves cracked through the silence, slow and deliberate, like a heartbeat approaching from the horizon. Riker cursed under his breath, ordering his men to ready themselves. Though he did not say the gunslinger's name, Asha closed her eyes briefly, not in relief but in certainty, knowing that Cole Harrow had arrived exactly as she had expected. At the very moment when darkness transforms into dawn, the raiders formed a loose circle, weapons drawn, all facing the shape emerging from the rising light. Cole dismounted his horse with the calm of someone who had nothing left to fear. His hands steady, his steps slow, his gaze locked on Asha rather than the men shouting around him. He walked until he reached the boundary of the fence where she stood bound, and only then did he glance at the raiders, his eyes cold enough to make several of them shift uncomfortably. Cole did not give speeches. He did not announce threats. He simply looked at Asha, saw the rope marks on her skin, and something deep within him hardened in a silent, dangerous way. Riker tried to negotiate, offering Cole gold, land, even freedom for Asha, but Cole ignored him completely. One of the raiders panicked and fired a shot into the dirt near Cole's boots. But Cole didn't move, didn't blink, didn't so much as turn his head. That stillness terrified them more than any gunshot. Asha felt the shift in the air, a stillness before inevitable chaos. But she sensed the control in Cole's stance, the promise that she would walk away from this, and the man who had taken her would not. When Cole finally raised his weapon, he did so with precision forged from a past he had buried but never forgotten. And though he did not say a single word, the message was carved into every line of his posture. They stole the wrong Apache woman, and they were about to learn what that mistake would cost them. Asha's heartbeat remained steady as she waited, knowing that the moment the sun fully rose, the land itself would witness what happened when a legendary gunslinger kept his promise. The moment the sun crowned the horizon, everything in the raiders' camp tightened like a drawn bowstring, as Cole Harrow stood at the fence line with the quiet certainty of a man who had already measured the distance, weighed the danger, and accepted whatever end might come as long as Asha walked free. Riker watched him with a mixture of fury and dread, barking orders to his men, trying to convince himself that numbers could conquer reputation. But Cole's presence carved through every illusion of safety the raiders clung to. Asha, still bound to the wooden post, felt the tension humming beneath the surface like the slow coil of a rattlesnake, preparing to strike. Cole did not rush, did not posture, did not waste breath on ultimatums. Instead, he raised his gun with the